Hello everyone and Happy New Year. Today, as you can see, we will be going over a review of the NMOS 2021. The NMOS is organized by NUS High. Oops, I forgot to switch to writing mode. It's a new year. The NMOS stands for the National Math Olympiad of Singapore. For those of you who have been seeing some of my videos, you would realize that there is also the somewhat similarly named SMO. The SMO is the Singapore Math Olympiad. That's for secondary school students. This is for primary 5 students in most ordinary years. To give a bit of recent history, in 2020 it was cancelled due to COVID, and so last year in 2021 this was open to both P5 and P6 students, but they competed in separate categories for a separate set of awards. So it is meant for P5 students, although to be fair, the questions are really not very easy for P5 standard. As to the format, the first round, there are 30 questions and you have a total of 90 minutes. The questions are not of equal weightage because the first 10 questions are each worth 1 mark. The middle set of 10 questions are worth 2 marks, and the last set of 10 questions are each worth 3 marks. So this comes up to a total of 60 marks. So this is also known as the preliminary round because there is supposed to be a special round. This special round would be for the top students in round 1, and it was last held in 2019, so that's a while back. As mentioned, it was cancelled in 2020, the whole competition, and for last year there was only a first round due to various constraints. So this second round is 20 questions in 90 minutes, and they're worth more marks straight away. So the first 10 are worth 4, and the last 10 here are worth 5. So the second round would be worth 90 marks, and then the top awards would be given based on the sum of the scores of round 1 and round 2. So if you don't qualify for round 2, it doesn't mean you won't get anything. You might be able to get a silver award, a bronze award, or an honorable mention. But for those who are trying to get a gold or a top 30 placing, you would need to get into the second round and do reasonably well as well in the second round. Now we're looking only at 2021, so I'll be going over just the first round. And I'll split the video up into 3 parts because it will take pretty long to go over all the 30 questions at one go. As a rule of thumb, you should be looking to spend about 20 minutes on the first 10, 30 minutes on the middle, and 40 minutes for the end. The reason why it is not equal for all is because for the first 10 questions especially, if you can solve it, you should be able to solve it pretty fast. And if you can't solve it pretty fast, it's probably not worth solving at all because 1 mark is not worth your effort when you could save up that time to solve a 2 or 3 mark question. So in the next 20 minutes or so, we'll be looking at just the first 10 questions in this part, and in the next 2 parts of the video you would be able to see the middle 10 and the last 10 questions. Without further ado, let's jump straight into question 1. We are given this pattern, and in this pattern it is quite clear that you start from 1, you add all the way to some middle number, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So you add from 1 to the middle number and then back down to 1, and it gives you this observation that it is actually just equal to the middle number squared. So find the value of this. Well, that's simple enough. If I follow the pattern, it should be 50 squared, which is 50 times 50, and 5 times 5 is 25. So put 2 zeros at the back and we have solved 1 question for 1 mark. Let's move on. Question 2. The measures of angles ABCD of a quadrilateral ABCD are in the ratio 1:2:3:4. Determine the smallest angle in degrees. Look at the quadrilateral here and remember that ABCD, the angles, are all connected together by the fact that they are in a quadrilateral. So if these were just 4 random angles, I have no way to find them out. But because they are in a quadrilateral, I can ask myself, how are angles in a quadrilateral related? Answer: they are related by the fact that their sum should be 360 degrees. So since they are in the ratio 1:2:3:4, I can let the angles be just 1 unit, 2 units, 3 units and 4 units, and I claim that these would add up to 360 degrees. So this 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, conveniently enough, is 10. So therefore 10 units is 360. And we know that 1 unit is 36 degrees. Okay, 1 unit being the smallest angle. So therefore this is already the answer. Take note for the NMOS, I almost forgot to mention, you don't need to show workings. So you can just put this down at the end, 36 degrees. Even when you see 10 units is 360 degrees, you don't need to actually write down the last step. You can quickly go to your answer sheet and just bubble in 36 and move on. Question 3. You have a pie chart. They tell you that there is an equal number of male and female visitors, which seems to be divided across this line. And the number of boys is 288. What's the total number of visitors who are not women? So not in this slice. Well, 144 degrees is 288, makes our life pretty simple because 288 is just twice of 144. So 1 degree corresponds to 2 people. Since we are asked for the total number of visitors who are not women, we don't really need to find out the girls and the men on their own. We can just take 360 degrees minus 48 degrees, and that would give us the rest. 312 degrees. 312 degrees times 2 would be 624 people. Question 4. A rectangle is divided into 4 smaller rectangles, not drawn to scale, and each area is shown in the following diagram. Well, each except for this A, which we are supposed to find. Now, it is pretty tempting, and usually not a bad idea, to see if we can guess what are all the lengths of the rectangles. In this case, if you have 45 and 80, it makes sense to guess that the HCF is 5, so I can take this as 5, this to be 9, 80 divided by 5 is 16, and so 16 moves over here, 9 moves over here, 48 divided by 16 is 3, so 3 times 9 is 27. And it looks like we have an answer already. If you're asking though, how did we know that it is exactly 16 meters and 9 meters? The answer is we did not actually know that. This is just a convenient guess. And in fact, we just needed to note the ratio. The 16 is to 9 and 3 is to 5. So even if we didn't find the lengths, we could have used the ratio and still gotten the same answer. That, for example, A would be 3/5 of 45, which is 27. So same answer either way. Question 5. More than 30 students participated in a math competition, the full score of which is 100 marks. It is known that Peter's score is not a multiple of 10, so his score does not end in the digit 0. The teacher accidentally exchanges the 10th and units digit. Okay, this looks like a typo. I think it should be 10th digit. I think maybe the competition made a typo. A 10th digit and the units digit of Peter's score, and the error decreases the average score of the class by 2 marks. Now realize that this is quite a tragic mistake, because it didn't decrease Peter's score by 2 marks. It decreased the average by 2 marks. And this is a really big class. Right? More than 30 students took part, and it decreased their average by 2. Now what does it mean to decrease the average by 2? It means that the total score went down by 2 times the number of students. And 2 times the number of students is quite a lot. So Peter here has really been shortchanged, because more than 30 students times 2. So it is more than 60 marks that he has been cheated of. Well, hopefully this was resolved for Peter's sake. But this whole mistake just happened because you swapped the tens and the units digit of the score. Now we realize that this is pretty significant. If let's say that it was something like 64 and you swap them around to get 46. Now this is already quite unfortunate, but that would not decrease it by 60 marks. So for it to go down all the way by 60 marks, it has to be that Peter's score has a tens digit that is very big and a ones digit that's very small. So he did very well originally and it became very bad. Now if it was something, let's say, a bit further apart, like 81 to 18, 81 minus 18, the difference is 63. This is also not possible because 63 cannot be 2 times anything. It's not an even number. So we don't want to have a case where the number of students is 31.5. That will be not possible. So if we try to fix this, you will realize that the only way to fix it is 91 and 19. You need to make sure that when you flip it around, the difference is an even number. So here the decrease is 72, which satisfies even number, and more than 60. More importantly, it means that the number that he got at first was 91. So if you encounter such a question, my suggestion is that skip it first, unless you know exactly what to do. It's a 1 mark question that's probably worth quite a bit more than 1 mark worth of your time. So this would be something that you could consider skipping on your first go around the paper. Unless, as I said, you immediately knew what to do. Next up, question 6, which rather coincidentally has 6 identical rectangles and the length of each rectangle is 6 cm. We are asked to find the perimeter of the figure, and immediately 2 things should stand out to you. The first is that this figure, you don't need to find the perimeter by tracing it out. You can sort of blow it up into a larger rectangle. And the perimeter of this figure would be the same as the perimeter of the whole thing. So that would be nicer because one of the sides is already 12 cm. So we only need to find the other side. To find the other side, we need to find the shorter side of the small rectangles. And to find the shorter side of the small rectangles, we need to go no further than just to look at this line over here. Now, on one hand, this is 6 cm because that's the length of the rectangle. On the other hand, it is 3 of these shorter lengths, so they must be 2, 2, and 2. So that means that the width of your rectangle is 2 cm. Now we can easily fill up the details then. This would be 2, this portion here is 2, and this portion on top is 6. So in total you get 10 cm here, you get 12 cm here, and then your perimeter is 2 times 10 plus 12, which is 44 cm. Question 7. In the year 2020, a total of 612 students participated in an annual math contest. The organizer observed that there is a 20% increase in the number of participants every year over the previous year since the year 2018. How many participants were there in 2018? Well, the organizer is making a whole lot of this 20% increase, but actually it's just been for 2 years, right? 2018 to 2020. It's not that long a time period. It just went from 2018 to 2019, went up by 20%. And then 1 more year, it went up by 20% again, and that's really the end of this pattern. We notice that they told us the final answer, 612, the final number of participants, so we kind of want to go backwards. It may be tempting to say that let's just minus off 20% from 612 and then minus off 20% again. Well, this is going to be very mistaken because, for one thing, you're not going to get a whole number of students. So something has gone wrong when you find out that you have 0.8 of a student roaming around. But more importantly, that's not how percentage works. To give a very simple example, let's say that I had $100. Now I increased by 50%. So now I have $150. if I go and decrease it back by 50%, meaning that I halve my money, I'll be left with $75, which is not the same as what I started with. And that's because you're adding 50% of 100, but you're subtracting 50% of 150. So it's not 50% of the same thing, right? So 50% of a pencil would be very different from 50% of a computer. Now, based on that, you understand that this is 20% of the number in 2019. So we can write it as 120% of that corresponds to 612. And this is very easy to convert to 100%. We just divide by 6. 612 divided by 6 is 102. Nice to see. And then you multiply by 5. This would be 510. So 510 would be the number of participants in 2019. Don't get too excited, we need to just do this one more time and then we'll be done. So 120% is 510, you divide by 6, it is 85, and then you multiply back by 5 again. So 85 times 5 is 425, which is your final answer. So 425 participants in the year 2018, and if you look at it here, it means that the increase from 425 is plus 85 to 510, and then plus 102 to get to 612. Right? So this is how it worked out. So be very careful when you're dealing with percentages. Don't just undo it without thinking what exactly you are undoing. Question 8. A bug is moving from B to A along the lines as shown below. It can only move downwards or to the left, and it must pass through C. What's the total number of different paths from B to A? Alright, now for such a question here, the idea is to just go point by point and record how many different paths are there to get up to that point. If you've not heard of this before, it sounds really complicated, but it's not at all because you're just doing addition. So I say that there's only one way that you can start, and so therefore there's only one way to get to here, and there's also one way to get to here. Right? When I say here, I'm referring to the intersection, right? The junction, so to speak. Now there's one way to get to here and one way to get to here, which means that to get to this junction here, there are two ways. Likewise, to get to here is just going to be 1, and then now to get to C, it is 1 plus 2, which is 3 ways. Now before we continue listing, let's just be careful. We should not be including something like this junction, because if you reach there, it means that you have already overshot C, and you will not ever get back to C because you can only go downwards or to the left. So you should continue filling up just in the bounds of this rectangle over here. You should not go and look at the space on the right or above of it, because if you went there, it means you're never reaching C. Okay, with that in mind, the rest is just doing it again. Here would be 3 and 3. And I can fill up the whole boundary with 3s. Then 3 plus 3 is 6. 3 plus 6 is 9. 6 plus 3 is 9 again. 9 plus 9 is 18. 9 plus 3 is 12. And finally 18 plus 12 is 30. So you realize that this is pretty simple to do. The only consideration that you have to make is which parts are off limits. So if they're off limits, just remember not to count it. And also remember to fill up the squares in the correct order. You cannot just fill it up and then realize, oops, I filled it up too early, because there's actually another way to get in there. Question 9. Annie and Bonnie were running laps around a circular track. So let's draw a circular track. It's not very circular, but it's not very important, because really what matters is that they are running, and Bonnie was running at the same speed, or Annie was, well, a little faster than that. So at first, and I don't really need a circular track, I realize, since it says that Annie ran for 1 km, while Bonnie ran for, well, don't know what, And then after that, Annie went a bit faster. She increased her speed by 20%, and she ran for 870 meters at that faster speed, while Bonnie didn't change, right? She was constant throughout. Really, all we need to figure out is how much did Bonnie run in these two periods of time. Now, Annie's speed is faster than Bonnie by 25%. This is important for us to know, relatively speaking, how much would Bonnie have ran while Annie ran for 1 km. Now, the speed corresponds to 125 to 100%, which is in the ratio 5:4. So 5:4 means that every time when Annie runs 5 meters, Bonnie runs 4 meters. And so therefore, 1000 meters divided by 5 times 4, or rather 1000 times 4 over 5, is 800 meters for the first part of this question. Now for the second part, you see that Annie increased her speed by another 20%. So she increased by 20%. 20% is 1/5. It means that she is 1/5 faster than before, which means that you can say the new ratio is actually 6:4, which is 3:2. Now 3:2 means that when Annie runs 3 meters, Bonnie runs 2 meters, and so Annie ran 870 meters, so Bonnie would have ran 2/3 of that. So 2/3 times 870. 870 divided by 3 is 290, and 290 times 2 is 580. So the total would be your answer. 800 plus 580 is 1380 meters. And finally, we are at question 10. The first digit of the 5-digit number 1 ABCD is 1. If this first digit is moved to the last place, we get a new 5-digit number ABCD1. Given that the average of both the 5-digit numbers is 20, 21, 9, find the value of ABCD. This is just a very convenient way to get 20, 21 in the picture, but it's not very important because average is a bit clumsy. We rather look at the sum. So the sum is 20, 21, 9 times 2, which is 40438. Now, 1 ABCD plus ABCD1 is 40438. We can just write this down vertically as a sum. Take note that in this question, it does not say that the different letters represent different numbers. So it is permitted that the same digit could appear multiple times in ABCD. ABCD is just a 4-digit number. Now, solving these kinds of arithmetics is normally not so easy, but since they give us the entire sum and they give us a digit 1 to begin with, this is not too bad. I can start by saying D plus 1 should be 8, so D is 7, and so I can fill up 7 down here. Now, next of all, C plus D should give me 3, and so since 7 is bigger than 3, it means that it should be 13. 13 minus 7 is 6. So it is 6, and then there's a carryover of 1. Once again, I do the same thing here. 14 minus 6 minus 1 is 7. So B should be 7, and I can fill it up here. There's also a carryover of 1. So 1 plus A plus 7 gives me 10. So A should be 2, and there's a carryover of 1. Now we see at the end, 1 plus 1 plus 2 is 4. That's correct, so we haven't done anything wrong. And the answer is literally staring us in the face. It is 2767. Right, and with that, we have come to the end of this part of the video. I'll stop here for now, and once you're ready, or once you think that you would like to see the next 10 questions, just please look at the next part of the video that will be uploaded pretty soon. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next part of the video.